Okay, Sydney, we're going to try this a third time. I'm having technical difficulties. Here we go. Okay, here's problem 4 from your worksheet. I'm finding that every time I'm doing this, I'm getting quicker and quicker. So here we go. All right, this is how we write problem 4 as an augmented matrix. Notice how there's no y in the first equation. That's why I get a 0. And there's no z in the second equation, and that's why I get a 0. All right, the basic pattern, and I bet you my husband knows how to do this problem now, is that you want to always get a 1 in that upper left-hand corner. Then you want to work on getting a 0 in these two spots next, followed by getting a 0 in this spot, then getting a 1 in this spot. And I know that there is a 1 here already, but that doesn't necessarily mean we will keep the 1. It might change when we do some row manipulations. When you're done with that part, what you've kind of done is you have kind of dealt with that bottom half of the triangle, getting that to look like your identity matrix. Then you can work on getting these two to be 0 and these two to be 0 and 1 respectively. That pattern works every time when you're not sure what am I supposed to do and what am I supposed to do first, last. So here we go. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to work on getting this to be a 0 and this to be a 0. I can't do it by just multiplying something through. I have to do it by adding rows together. So to do that, I am going to use row 1. I could have used row 3. But if I could make this number be a -2 and then combine it with this 2, replace it in row 2, that would get this to be a 0. So I'm going to take -2 times row 1, and I'm going to add it to row 2. Okay, so here is the computation for that. Okay, if I take -2 plus 2, I get 0. Or excuse me, I get 1. And I just said that wrong. Let's back that truck up. All right, that one stays. Let's go to row 2 now. There we go. All right, so again, 1 times -2 is -2, plus 2 is 0. 0 times -2 is 0, plus 1 is 1. 2 times -2 is -4, plus 0 stays -4. 11 times -2 is -22, plus 4 yields the -18. All right, I'm going to use the same logic, and now I'm going to work on getting this one to be a 0. Now, I could multiply the top row by -1 and add it, or put more simply, I can subtract the two rows. It doesn't make a difference if you want to take row 3 minus row 1 or row 1 minus row 3. I just did it this way to show you how to do the problem. So if I take 1 minus 1, I get 0. If I take 0 minus 3, I get -3. If I take 2 minus 1, I get 1. And if I take 11 minus 1, I get 10. The next thing I have to do is to complete that triangular kind of pattern, and you want to make this slot be a 0. Well, I don't want to combine anything with row 1, because if I tried to combine rows 1 and rows 3, I would get a 1 back here, and you want to preserve a 0 once you've already gotten a 0. So instead, I'm going to mess with row 2. If I could multiply this by 3 and add it to the -3, that would yield a 0. So that's what I'm going to do in the next step. Okay, I'm going to take 3 times row 2, and I'm going to add it to row 3. So 0 times 3 plus 0 yields 0. 1 times 3 minus 3 gives me the 0. -4 times 3 is -12, plus 11 gives me -11. And then -18 times 3 is -54, plus 10 gives me -54. In my opinion, that's the hardest part of the problem. You're home free because you have the entire bottom triangle mapped out like the identity. And what's nice is -11 and -44 are both divisible by -11, and I can make this a 1. So that's what I'm going to do in my next step. I'm just going to divide through row 3 by negative 11, and then I have the bottom half of my identity triangle ready to go. Now, a perk of the problem is I already have a 0 here, so I don't have to do any work. But I do need to work on making the 2 and the negative 4 a 0. And I'm basically going to do what I did up here in this step. I'm not going to use the first row and combine it with the second row, or use the first row and combine it with the, no, I just said that. I said too much. I'm not going to use those two rows together because any combination would either cause this one to be, is this 0 to be a 1 or this 0 to be a 1. And you want to preserve those zeros. So I'm going to use and abuse row 3. If I take row 3 and I multiply it by negative 2 and add it to this, it's going to cause that to be a 0. So that's what I'm going to do first. Okay. 1 and negative 2 times 0 is still 1. 0 and negative 2 times 0 is still 0. 2 times 1 times negative 2 is still 0. 11 times negative 8, excuse me, oh, I said that wrong. I'm so sorry, sweet, I'm getting sleepy. 11, and then 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 11 and negative 8 gives me the 3. Last but not least, I want to get rid of this negative 4. And again, if I tried to combine it with row 1, I would not preserve the 0 in that row. So instead, I'm going to use row 3. I'm going to multiply row 3 by 4. So 0 times 4 is going to give me 0. One times 0 times negative 4, still going to give me 1. Negative 4 plus 1 times 4 is 0. And then negative 18 plus 16 is going to give me a negative 2. I hope that logic helped you, made sense. If you need me to do another problem, I think I've got the technology glitches worked out, and I can send you another problem. And also feel free to call or text me at 314-680-2055. I know it might seem weird, but it's really not a problem. You're going to do great. There's only one question on tomorrow's quiz. I know you're going to get some partial credit, if not all correct. And so don't stress out about the one problem, but I know that you can do it. So give me a call. Bye.